Hi, when I recently changed the spark plugs on my 2012 Mercedes S550 W221 with the M278 engine, I had a heck of a time getting these boots pulled off of the spark plugs. They were nearly impossible to get off. As you can see how much stretch there is on there before I could get them off. So I decided to put together a little forensics video so I could show you what I think was going on, what happened, and eventually how much I put dielectric grease on there to make it easier for the next time if somebody manages to change the plugs on this in the future. So let me show you a couple things I learned. So very quickly, I want to show you how I got the boots off. The plugs are buried way into the head, and so I grabbed the end of right here in the curve of the plug wire. I grabbed it with some needle nose pliers and took a firm grip on it, and then I got a pretty hefty screwdriver in there, and I used the screwdriver to actually pry against the head to pull the boot off the spark plugs. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and cut one of the plug wires, split it open so you can see what's inside there, so you can understand what you're dealing with. So this is one of my old plug wires, and basically it's covered with a plastic shield that clips on. And I did try to unplug this or unsnap it early. It's clipped on both sides. So this plastic cover can actually come off. There we go. So that's enough to split this wide open and take the plastic cover off and get the heart of it out of there. So this is all one piece of rubber, and inside there is a spring at each end and a wire rod, or I'm sorry, a steel rod that runs through the middle here from about here to here. So let me split this open. We'll see if I can do this without hurting myself. Ah, that was tough to get apart. It looks like the rubber is somehow bonded to the steel shaft, the steel rod. So anyway, here you can see that this is a steel rod that's inside here. And you can see approximately where it extends to and from. And all it does is this end here will press up against the spark plug, and this end here will press up against the coil. And that's all that's inside there. In the new ones that I replaced these with, it was not bonded to the rubber, so you were able to spin the steel rod inside the rubber to get it to be oriented. And you can see that in the video I did when I assembled these plug wires to the coils before I put them in the car. So anyway, that's what's inside. All right, so I took one of the old spark plugs and one of the spark plug connector wires that I broke, and I took a couple of them. Anyway, I did a cutaway here of the boot. So hopefully you can kind of see in there what's going on. It's basically just a spring that's coiled up. Greasy. So when you push the spark plug in, you can see that it compresses that spring, and that holds the contact on the tip of the spark plug. So it's not like the old traditional spark plugs where they actually snap in. This is just a spring holding up against it. So you want to make sure that the boot is on the spark plug all the way, which is difficult to do since you can't see it, let alone touch it, let alone see it. Now, what's inside here, there is a rib right here. You can just see it here in the cross section, right there. And that apparently kind of snaps onto the spark plug right here. So if you look, you can see it. It kind of snaps right on there. So that's kind of like the ultimate depth for the boot. Now, if I take this boot, or take this plug, this one here, I already put some grease on it when I was playing around with it. But if I take this spark plug, which is dry, and this boot, which was dry, and I push that on there, it kind of snaps right on there. But look what happens when I try to get it off. Yeah, I'm pulling that pretty good. And of course, you can't get in there to pry it at all. This is a plastic cover. So here you can see the problem with getting these things off is they don't want to come off. There. So that is a problem. So before I did this one, I kind of greased it up with a little dielectric tune-up grease from Permatex. It's a little clear stuff, and I put quite a bit on this spark plug. But in this case here, I'll use this one here because I already put some on here. You can kind of see a line on there, kind of a dirty line. So you can see how far the boot went. It went on about that far. So I put a little dab here on the spark plug. And then I'm going to actually wipe most of it off. So there's just a light film on there. And this plug, as you can see, was dry. And so now I'm going to assemble this with the dielectric grease on here. Now, one of the reasons I put it on the plug, because it's ideally what you want to do is put it on the plug. You don't want to get any of it on the electrical connection, because this stuff is an insulator. You can look it up online, don't take my word for it, but the research I did was that this stuff is actually an insulator. You don't want to get it on your metal contacts. So by doing it this way, I'm not going to get any of it on the metal contacts. So now I'm going to push this on there, and look what it does. It kind of springs right off. It'll come off. But look how far it's springing off. And that's just by putting the grease in there. And I'm pretty sure that what that is that when I push this in here, I'm actually trapping air in here. And that air pressure is actually what's pushing it off. And there's no way to get the air out of it. And there's nothing you can do. You saw how thin a film I put on there. So now I'm going to wipe it off, and I'm going to stick it in here. The good news is the plug comes right off. Now that one there, you can see it went on and it's staying on. I've wiped most of the grease off. And when I go to pull it off, it's still pretty stuck. So there's a fine line between having grease on here and not having grease on here. So the challenge is to find out what's the right level of grease to put on here. So that's for the next poor guy that tries to, maybe I'll put it down here a little bit, tries to get these plug connectors off the plugs. He's going to have one hell of a time. So that one didn't work out too bad. Extremely thin, but look, it's still hard to get off. Not as hard as a completely dry. At least this one I would have had a chance to get them off. There we can see it's on there pretty good. Whoa! So that's the plug end of these things. Now on the other end, that is and I cut a section of that away here so that you can see what that looks like. Once again, it's just a little coil spring that's pressed onto this tapered stem. That tapered stem runs all the way down through here. It's a steel stem, I guess. So it's just a spring-loaded contact. That spring-loaded contact touches oh yeah, you can see it pretty good right there. That brass-colored looking disc, whatever, that's down in there. And that disc that's solid, it's not spring-loaded. And you can see it's got two flares. It's got two flares on it that orient into two flares in here that correspond with these two bumps in this flat. So it goes in like this, as you can see here. I cut through one of the flares, and then here's the full flare is right there. So this one here is supposed to go in like this. So when you push that in, you can see that the coil goes in, and you heard it snap in, and then these flares, barbs is the word I'm looking for. These barbs will hook into the little pockets that are in the rubber boot, and that keeps that in here. So this is the position that this will be in here, with a little to no gap here. And that brass plate is about that deep in there, and you can see that it puts a little bit of spring action against that plate. Of course, you can't see it when it's put together, but that's how that goes together. So I just wanted to do this for your information in case you care or know. When I put these on, I might try that. Put some dielectric grease on here, so this will just slip together and snap in place. We'll see if that pops off too. See if it'll still grip on there. But when this is in and it's trapped between the spark plug and the coil is bolted in, this is all kind of held in place. And that pressure might also keep this pushed down on the plug, even if there's some air pressure in there trying to push it off. And I hope this helps, and thanks for watching.